I had always been afraid of hospitals. It wasn't the sterile smell of antiseptic, or the cold, unfeeling machines. It was the silence. The kind of silence that comes with death. I'd seen it before, in my mother's eyes, as the life drained out of her in a hospital bed. That silence haunted me for years. And yet, here I was, drawn into another hospital that didn't seem quite right. The abandoned building loomed ahead of me, a relic of a time long past. Its cracked windows seemed to watch me as I approached, daring me to enter. The once grand entrance was now a broken skeleton, the doors hanging on their hinges like the gaping mouth of some monstrous creature. There was a strange pull, though, a force I couldn't ignore, an eerie allure that whispered to me from within. My heart pounded in my chest, a constant reminder that I wasn't alone. Not in the physical sense, but there was something here, something that had been waiting for me. I could feel it in my bones. I pushed open the door and stepped inside, the cold air biting at my skin as I entered. The smell of old medicine and decay hit me instantly. It wasn't just the typical stench of rot that comes with abandonment. No, this smelled different. It was the odor of something that had been trapped for too long, festering in the walls, unable to escape. It made my stomach churn, and I could feel my breath growing shallow. But still, I walked deeper, drawn further into the heart of the hospital. The hallways stretched out before me, long and dark, with flickering lights casting eerie shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Each step I took echoed in the silence, making the emptiness feel even more oppressive. But it wasn't truly silent. There was something else. A faint sound, like breathing, as if I wasn't alone. Yet, when I looked around, there was no one in sight. I glanced at the clock on the wall. 3:33 a.m. The numbers seemed to glow in the darkness, but it was strange. I had no memory of what had brought me here at this hour. It felt like time was warped, as if the hospital had a way of stealing it from me. My gaze wandered further down the hallway, and that's when I saw it. A mirror at the end of the hall, slightly tilted, almost as though it had been intentionally turned to face me. It gleamed in the dim light, the surface reflecting the empty hallway behind me. But there was something unsettling about it. It wasn't just the reflection of the place, it felt like the mirror itself was alive, watching me, waiting for me to approach. I didn't want to go closer, but I had to. The pull was too strong. Every part of me screamed to leave, but my feet moved of their own accord. As I walked towards the mirror, the atmosphere thickened. The air grew colder, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck rise. The whispers grew louder, low, guttural voices, faint but undeniable. "You're not alone," they seemed to say. "We've been waiting for you." I turned away from the mirror, trying to shake the growing sense of dread that had settled over me. But that's when I saw it, the wheelchair. At first, I thought I had imagined it, but as I blinked, the rusted chair creaked and slowly began to move across the floor. There was no wind, no reason for it to move, and yet it rolled steadily down the hallway, its metal wheels scraping against the old, dusty floor. I froze, watching as it continued its slow, eerie journey down the hall until it finally came to a stop at the base of the mirror. I wasn't sure what to make of it. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, but the screen flickered and went black, as if the battery had drained in an instant. My heart raced, my pulse pounding in my ears. Get out, I thought, but I couldn't leave. Not yet. Then, I heard it, a whisper, sharp, cold. "You see me now?" I froze, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't a trick of the mind. It was a voice, clear and direct. I looked around, expecting to find someone standing in the shadows, but there was no one. Just the empty, dark hallway. A sudden gust of cold air swept past me, though all the windows were shut tight. It left me chilled to the bone, and I instinctively pulled my jacket tighter around me. The smell in the air grew stronger, more pungent, rotting flesh, old blood, and something worse. Something I couldn't identify. I turned down the hallway, my heart thudding in my chest. But as I did, I saw it again. The mirror. The same one from before. But it wasn't facing me anymore. It had turned completely around, as if it had moved of its own accord. No one had touched it, and there was no reason for it to shift, but there it was, turned toward the wall. My pulse quickened. I felt my stomach twist in knots, the hairs on my arms standing on end. Something was wrong here. Very wrong. I took a hesitant step forward, my shoes echoing in the silence. The building seemed to groan beneath me, its walls shifting ever so slightly. I felt like the entire structure was alive, watching, waiting. I tried to convince myself it was just my mind playing tricks, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I pushed open a door to what appeared to be a patient room. Dust settled in the corners of the room, and the furniture was coated in a layer of grime, left to decay. But something caught my eye. An old rusted bed, and on it, an open patient file. The name on the file made my blood run cold. It was mine. I felt dizzy, as if the world was spinning around me. The date of admission? Today? I flipped through the pages, trembling. The details were mostly illegible, faded by time. But one entry stood out. Patient refuses to acknowledge the mirror figure. What did that mean? Who had written this? Why was my name on the file? I dropped the paper, the words spinning in my head. I looked around the room, desperate for answers. And then I saw it, the mirror, cracked and dusty, sitting in the corner, forgotten by time. But it wasn't the same as the others. This one had a handprint on it, smudged, as though someone or something had pressed its hand against the glass. But I hadn't touched it. No one had. I could feel it watching me. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to face it. The mirror, the figure, whatever was waiting for me. My breath caught in my throat as I slowly stepped toward it. My reflection stared back at me, but something was wrong. My mouth was slightly open, like I was trying to say something, but I hadn't moved. I hadn't made that expression. I dared to get closer. The coldness radiating from the glass was almost unbearable. And then, in a move I couldn't comprehend, my reflection raised its hand. Slowly, deliberately, it reached out. And it pointed. At me. I froze, unable to move. My blood turned to ice as I turned my head, instinctively looking behind me. There, standing just a few feet away, was a shadow. Its form was indistinct, vague, yet I could feel its presence. Like it was alive, waiting, watching. I couldn't stay here any longer. Panic surged through me as I turned and ran. My feet pounded against the cold floor, my breath ragged in my chest. I burst through door after door, desperate to find the exit, but the hallways had changed. The layout, once familiar, had twisted. Every door led me back to the same room, the same mirror, the same figure. It was waiting, watching. I could feel it now, its presence pressing in on me, suffocating me. I felt its grip on my soul, as if it were pulling me deeper into its web. I couldn't escape. No matter how fast I ran, no matter how many doors I slammed open, I was always drawn back to that same room. The mirror, the figure inside, it smiled. Slowly, it tilted its head, like it was pleased to see me, pleased to know I understood now. "Your turn," it whispered, its voice cold and hollow. The walls closed in, the temperature dropped even further, and my body froze. The figure's smile widened, and then everything went black. Suddenly, the screen flickered. The image is distorted, flickering with static, and then everything stopped. The last frame was of a reflection, my reflection, but it wasn't mine anymore. It was yours. If you're still watching, it's too late. The voice echoed in my mind, its words wrapping around me like a vice. They know you've seen us. And then, just like that, the video cut to black.